you hear me?
I hear you, David. How are you? Dover, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Then say something.
I'm sorry, I got up and closed my door.
Yeah. Hey, good morning. Welcome to BCB Live. Drive safe, Dave. Looking good, looking sharp. Like what's going on right now. Hey, listen, if you're new to BCB Live, we are the safest station in the nation. You got Drive Safe Dave right there, Sir Rick right here. Hey, before we get going too much, we have Dale up in the headquarters and the main studio with some breaking weather. Hey, Dale, good morning to you, sir.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hey, just want to jump in and talk about what we're seeing with some breaking weather. There's been a lot of snow overnight, and it's really affected, a lot of areas of travel for everyone. The major snow we've seen and are seeing right now stretches all the way up from Washington, all the way through Colorado, caught Nebraska last night, Kansas into Missouri, and that's really affected the roadways out there. So if you are in Kansas, I know there's some, Kansas has some roads that are very bad condition. Nebraska has some roads in that western part, central part. Colorado, I know there's some, 287 is closed in part of Colorado. So if you're traveling in any of these areas, all the way from Idaho through northern Utah, northern Colorado, most of Colorado, right now Kansas, the snow is falling all the way there, all the way over past St. Louis into Illinois. And we've got a couple of areas of a special concern because the leading edge of this snow up in Washington and Idaho, we're seeing some freezing rain. And then again, when we get down into the Missouri area, into Memphis and in Tennessee, we're seeing some freezing rain and some snow down in those areas. So drivers, I just want you to be aware of what's going on with the weather out there. Make sure that you're finding a weather app or 511.org to stay abreast of what's going on, because there is a lot of weather, a lot of snow going on, a lot of mixed precipitation. Of course, as the temperatures change, we're going to see different road conditions. So we need to make sure that everybody just needs to be slowing down and pack their patience this morning. And then I know overnight, if we kick this into this afternoon, we see that snow that was in the Memphis and the Tennessee River Valley starting to head up into the northeast. And so those areas this afternoon that are going to be affected are going to be Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and then overnight hours, it gets up into the New England states. And so tomorrow, overnight into tomorrow morning, and tomorrow, the New England states, Washington, D.C., is going to see some snow again in the morning, all the way up into New England states. But again, to reiterate what's going on right now, the major areas of concern with the roads are going to be, central Missouri, most of Kansas, northwestern Colorado, western and southern Nebraska. That's where the roads are really in less than optimum conditions. So we want to make sure that, if they're icy, slick, pull over, wait it out. Temperatures are supposed to warm up. Speaking of temperatures, extremely cold. The cold temperatures have come down to the double digits. As far as Wichita, they're probably in the teens right there in Wichita. And as you go north, it just continues to get colder. So be aware of the cold temperatures, your fuel, your gelling, the wind temperatures. So with that, we'll take a short break.
Hey, welcome back to BCB Live. Yes, we are that safest station in the nation. If you're worried about missing some of that weather updates, hey, don't worry. Double Check Dale will be back at the normal schedule time. But drive safe, Dave. When we see these cold snaps, when we see some of these ice or bad road conditions, part of what we do at BCB Live is to make sure we're giving you the news, to make sure that you absolutely know what kind of road conditions you're going to deal with, what you're going into. Yes, you still have got to do some of it on your own. Hey, but drive safe, Dave. When we see some of these road conditions, these cold snaps that are going through, is there anything that they need to know out there on the road?
Yeah, especially when it happens quickly like this, whenever you stop or whenever you come to a pause, make sure that you don't set the brakes on the trailer because they'll freeze up quickly. Set the brakes on the tractor. Leave the brakes free. Leave them open on the trailer. Make it a lot easier so they don't freeze up as easily back there where you're at. Also, when it gets to really cold temperatures, I tell you, it's when it gets down to the single digits, idle the truck. Keep the truck itself warm. It helps keep the fuel from gelling. It also keeps you warm, and you don't want to not be able to start your vehicle in the morning when you're ready to go. It's always nice that
but what if I don't
running.
What if I don't have an APU and my company is on me? They're getting on to me saying you're burning too much fuel, you're idling too much. Drive safe. Is this the time to idle or not idle?
When it's in a single digit, I recommend idling at this time because it's single digit. It's dangerous out there, and it's cold, and everything you touch is cold. So you want to make sure that you're safe, number one. And the best way to be safe is know that your truck will run, right? I mean, you don't want it not being able to start, and then you're going to get cold because the cold will set in quickly at single digit.
Yeah, Dave, yesterday we spoke a little bit about what happened up in Virginia with the highway shutting down for many hours. And I was watching the news, and I wish we would have got into this, and I didn't even think about it. But some of the conversation regarding that storm yesterday was about the EVs. What if those were electric vehicles on the road that day or in the future when these happen? What would have happened? Would we have had a highway full of cars
abandoned? Yeah, that's a great question, and there's a lot to be answered as we move forward. There's not a lot of EV stations right now, so they can't even charge if they needed to. But that is a great question to have. I did see a great and wonderful story. Did you see the story about the bread truck on 95.
No, I did not.
So it was stuck, and they called in. Some guys were parked next to it. They called the owner of the big, huge bread truck, and they took out all the loaves of bread and passed them out on the highway.
Oh, wow.
Because they were stranded there for so long, and the bread was going to be late anyway. And you're just talking about one truck. The owner of the truck said, hey, pass out all the food you can. Get it to everybody. So a lot of people had those little Hostess cakes. They had loaves of bread and walked around, and they walked up and down miles passing out. People were helping passing bread out to people that were stranded for hours.
I wonder when they were done with all that, passing out that bread, were there still like 5 baskets left?
Yeah, there were only 5 baskets and 3 fish. They were... There was. But you know what? It's nice to see that people are working together in those difficult situations to make it a little bit better. I mean, you know, even a piece of bread when you haven't eaten for 24 hours is not bad.
No doubt at all. And it's a reminder to all of us is that, you know, there comes a time and place when we've got to help out our fellow brother and sister, especially out there on the road.
Absolutely.
And that's what we are. Dave, when you talk to, you know, if I talk to my parents or folks that are saying they're 60s, 70s, 80s, let me tell you something. They always talk about back in the day, especially when they know we're involved with trucking, about how those truck drivers, they were the saviors of the highway. They were the knights, right? They would always give them a helping hand,
100%.
do this, directions and all that.
100%.
We want to make sure we're still doing our part on that.
Right. We want to make sure that image up is upheld today, and we got to do that. Listen, you may not have the CBs out there like you had before, but if you find somebody in difficulty and you see them stranded, it's okay to ask if they need a phone call, right? It's okay to say, hey, can I call emergency services for you, or can I help you out, or whatever. I mean, it's okay to find out if people need help, and if they do, it's okay to call for help, right?
Yes, for sure. We want to, again, encourage each and every one. We have a big image to uphold. We have a lot of folks out there that count on us. They count on that bread getting there. They count on you helping, keeping them alive, keeping them safe, delivering those goods. You know, all of these things that you do, we want to make sure we, as an industry, continue to do that, but do a little bit more. And when that more that I'm speaking of, Dave, is just the humanity that seems to, not in trucking, I don't think, but in this world, my God, does it seem like it's just vanishing right in front of us?
Yeah, it's okay to say, do you need help, right? It's okay to say, how are you doing? And it's okay to smile. Believe it or not, it's really okay to smile. It's actually contagious. I get...
you know what? You're preaching to the choir right here.
Okay.
I'm one that smiles. It's hard to catch me without smiling.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll stay there right in front of you until you join me in a smile.
Okay.
Just a little bit about what, hey, Dave, we do want to talk a little bit. You know, obviously breaking the news all over the country now continues to be that COVID. We've seen it with the airlines, right? A lot of airline industries going down or, you know, slowdowns in the airline industry. Here in Dallas, we had over 200 paramedics now without the
firefighters and
firefighters. 75% of them firefighters on COVID. And if you look at what their spokesman said, they said this is the most ever that they've had during the entire pandemic of being out.
Yeah, and I believe it because the record numbers are just going through the roof. They're better. They're larger numbers per day than they ever were in any time during the pandemic we've had over the last almost 2 years now. So we're looking at huge and vast numbers of people getting easily infecting one another. And you know what? It's going around. We've got to stay best practices. You know, they said firefighters were much, much larger than policemen, and I believe that to be the case because firefighters are together in a station. They're together in a truck. You go to a police officer, he's by himself all day, much like our drivers out there in a bubble. You know, they're a little bit more protected when they're not, when they work by themselves and they stay away from one another. So I truly believe one of the safest places for a driver to be right now is in the truck.
Without a doubt, if you catch yourself in a Dunkin' Donuts right now, hey, get out of there before they come in there. Drive safe, Dave, you shouldn't laugh at that right there. Hey, we're going to be back to you in about 60 seconds. This is BCB Live, and yes, indeed, we are the safest station in the nation. Larkin here, host of BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. If you don't already know about Freight and Review, it's a segment I cover once a week where I analyze freight rejections, freight tenders, driver productivity, and much, much more. You can watch Freight and Review on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe today and follow BCB Live.
You think give me 2 seconds? I got one right here.
Hey, we are back, and my gosh, that was quick. You know, how about a warning for us? You know, drive safe, Dave. Listen, we talk about the fire department, all those folks that are out right now in the police officers as well. Let's also look at this. You know, we've talked to, I've talked to a few different trucking companies now. We've heard right now that many companies are experiencing about up to a 15% reduction in drivers right now with COVID. We've seen that normal about 4, 5, 6, 7%, but it's been as high as 15%. And let's just do some math here real quick. Let's just take 100,000 drivers. Drive safe, Dave. And I'm going to change this color. I don't like the red. Let me see if we just go straight white. All right. 100,000 drivers out right now. And if 5% of those drivers across the board, just 100,000 drivers, we know there's many more than that. How many drivers is that?
5 grand.
5,000 drivers out today, out yesterday, not making deliveries. If drivers, drive safe, Dave, are driving 7 hours a day, okay, they're driving 7 hours. Now, don't forget they have 11. All right, we're just going to go, hey, let's just say they drive 7. How many hours is that?
35,000.
35,000 hours of drivers not running today. Is that right?
Yep.
5 times 7 is 35, and then you add the 3 zeros.
There you go, 35,000. All right, we know this from data all over the place that drivers at every hour when they're driving, hey, they're averaging 58 miles an hour. 35,000 times 58 miles per hour. What is that, Dave?
2,030,000.
2,030,000.
Yeah.
We'll just go with that. I'm not even going to check it out.
That's correct.
2 million miles today, yesterday, Monday, not being driven today. Over 2 million miles a day with drivers that even last year when we have, normally drivers are out, but you take an extra 5% of just 100,000 drivers.
Yeah, when
there's way more, right?
3 million.
Yeah, 100,000. That's 2 million miles of a day of no productivity, of loads not being moved. We talk about an issue today in which supply chain is massive, right? Supply chain is the conversation. Now, at the beginning of the year, when more drivers are off than ever, you add an extra 2 million miles a day, only off 100,000 drivers. Let me tell you something. There's a lot of freight that's not going to move. When you see that weather that we talked about, drivers aren't going to go there. They have choices right now.
Yep.
Dave, if you have a choice as a driver, because you know that there's a ton of loads out there, would you take a load to a place that's going to freeze you out, that maybe the roads are bad, or are you going to stay south?
I'm going to probably stay south because I can get more hours.
South. You're going to be able to drive more. You're going to get great money anyway because you have the choice. It's in your favor. And for those companies, and I feel for those companies, we saw that in the Colorados. We saw that up in the Pacific area.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Your freight's going to be sitting for a while. And I just say this is that, can you imagine when the roads open back up again, when it's not as cold, how many loads are going into those areas and the rates?
Because what's coming out.
Yes, because well, again, you continue making the product. You don't stop making product for that area.
Yeah,
people continue ordering, and now the backlogs and backlogs continue.
And think of all and also think of all the trucks that are already en route that have to stop.
Oh yeah,
they're stuck. I mean, that they're stuck. They're delays in weather. You got all these issues and problems. It just compounds. I did 3 million drivers, just so you did. So because that's about what is out there. And I did 3 million drivers. It came out to almost 60 million. So, I mean, to extrapolate all these numbers out, it's a lot of miles.
Yeah, it's a lot of freight. It's a lot of local deliveries. It's a lot of freight that's sitting on bobtail trucks, box trucks. We have bread out there that's not getting delivered with the bad road conditions. And when a driver, when you think about the bread guy, hey, we want to thank you for doing your part.
Right.
But think about the same bread driver, Dave. He gave away that bread. It wasn't going to do any good anyway. And now he probably still can't get back for his next delivery. And how are you going to get that next load of bread delivered?
Yeah.
Even in a bobtail, he was stuck in traffic.
Right.
He now has hours of service. He now has all the same issues that an over-the-road truck has. He can't get back safe.
Yeah,
and guess what? HEB or whatever that, whatever grocery store that is up there, they still want their bread.
Yeah, and let's talk about this, because this is a great point to bring up an opportunity to be wise with the hours that you have. If you are down, or you do go down because of weather, make sure you don't start back up right away. Make sure you be very miserly with the hours that you have in your 70.
Nice word.
And that you make sure that you spend those wisely, because those hours need to be used wisely. So if you're down for 12 hours, make sure you get your 10-hour break, and not only the break, but you get the rest needed with the break.
Thank you, because just because you get that 12-hour break, it's also important that you try to get some rest.
Absolutely.
And
Get
we
the
get
rest
it, right?
needed.
If you come off your 10-hour break and
you
now
can't
you're
run.
still shut down, it's hard to come off a 10-hour break, shut down for 12
If you
hours,
need some-
and all of a sudden you're fresh again, because you're probably up during that whole time.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you, there is a skill set with being able to rest even after your 10-hour break and moving forward. I have that skill set in mind. I can, if the
We
truck
found his skill, folks. Take advantage of it. Email us over here. This is BCB Live. We're the safest station in the nation. Hey, we'll be back to you in 60 seconds.
Hey everybody, it's Drive Safe Dave here with BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. As you know, winter is upon us, and with winter comes some difficulties and challenges. Now, if you live below or running below that 20 or I-10 corridor, you may not feel that pressure, but if you do, let's talk about a few little tips that we have. Tip number one, let's make sure we get over here and we drain these air tanks. Let's get that moisture out of there, so that we make sure, because moisture and freezing cold temperatures don't mix. All they make is ice. Tip number two, remember, when air temperature drops, so does pressure in these tires. You want to make sure that when you enter into or near cold temperatures, you make sure that your tire pressure is, and cold pressure stays correct throughout these cold temperatures. You want to be safe out there, because this is where the rubber meets the road. Tip number three, if it's extreme weather and extreme cold conditions, you may want to make sure that you use an anticoagulant or an anti-gel inside the diesel fuel, so that it thins and doesn't gel up on you in the lines or anywhere else. Tip number four, as you know, when you enter into the West, there are certain regions that require you to have snow chains and or snow socks in that region. Make sure that you carry them. And tip number five, I'm going to give this one to you as a freebie. Carry with you a little bit of cat litter in your truck. That way, if you get a little bit stuck, or if you get near a region that doesn't have a lot of grip, you can throw that down and give your truck that needed oomph to get out of those sticky or slippery situations. For more pertinent and safety information, you can always tune in Monday through Friday, Central Standard Time, between 7 and 8 a.m. and get that needed information on BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
You're watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation. BCB Live covers freight. Here we are now at 21% of record freight being rejected. News down in Texas. We're going to talk a little bit about this. We had another $1.5 million seizure. If ever there's a time to do a pre or post trip, it's if you're doing something wrong. Weather, traffic.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to some traffic and weather with Buckle Up Bob. You can kind of see where the visibility can be compromised a little bit. Again, right where that rain is.
And most importantly, safety. One of the things that we must do is make sure that safety is the number one thing that we focus on.
Going into an intersection yellow is not the way. That's to clear an intersection, not to enter an intersection.
Tune in weekdays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can watch BCB Live through LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe today and follow BCB Live. welcome back to BCB Live, safest station in the nation. Hey, Dave, we were talking about right before the break the amount of freight, the drivers that are out, and when weather comes into play. I just want us to take a minute to look at a couple things. If we look at right now across the United States, the outbound tender rejections on the van side only, sitting around 21.34, so very high, right? Very high rejection rate. And when it comes to the weather, when it comes to drivers out with COVID, what I also believe, and Dave, I think we talked about this many times last year, is that, this rejection rate doesn't reflect what's going on right now because we continue to take freight, right? We don't understand yet that drivers are out because today, many companies, they're going off load count.
Right.
And if your load count's normally 1,000 loads in the system, you continue to take that. But when drivers are out sick, right?
Exactly.
When the vacation, out sick, on top of that, 10% of your drivers, well, that same 1,000 loads that worked last quarter of 2021, all of a sudden becomes a burden, right? It becomes too much freight. You don't have enough trucks. You feel that squeeze as a planner. You says, my God, we have so much freight. And the answer is, you don't have any more freight. You just don't have as many drivers, as many hours as you had.
No one does.
And so expect this, and just hear me on this, is that next week we will react as a industry to this. This number of 21.34, it will increase as we start realizing that, I'm not going to make it through the weekend.
Yeah, help.
Yeah, I'm not going to make it through the weekend. There's no way. And for a lot of companies, Dave, the answer has been in the past, especially in January, is, well, here's what you do. All of that freight, you just take it and sell it because it's January and it's slow. Well, remember, this isn't 2019.
Right.
This isn't 2020.
Right.
And Dave, when you have all of this freight and the market's already jacked up, no drivers running, that's the same thing. That 5 or 10%, it's the same thing with our owner-operators out there. A lot of them are sick and they're not running. And so that freight's going to continue to get rejected. All of a sudden, you try to sell that load and there's not enough money on it. What you had as a contract rate doesn't work, and I'm telling you, it won't work next week. So just things to look about. But Dave, when you look at some of these things in here, look at the spike. This green is Seattle. Seattle, at the end of December, was hovering around 28%. Let's just call it 18%, throughout the whole year. Bad weather, outbound tender rejections today, 25.27. Outbound tender rejections are up. Why are they up? Well, because companies can't get there. Right? And if you can't get there, you have to reject the load.
Correct.
So loads are going to start mounting up and out of there. Denver, Colorado, I believe, in the orange. Outbound tender rejection staying pretty high, even if you look through December, around that 26, almost 27%. Today, 32.5.
In Denver.
And think about this right now, is that 32% of that freight's being rejected. It's not going anywhere.
No, it's not.
And it's going to continue to mount. Hey, guess what? Miller Coors, a company out of Colorado, people are still ordering beer.
Absolutely.
But the beer's just piling up and piling up and piling up. And don't be surprised, Dave, if all of a sudden you have a little beer shortage in some of these places.
Oh,
no cans on the shelf.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot that goes with that. I mean, it's inbounds, outbounds, and when you have all of these drivers out, and we're talking large numbers. We're not talking little, even 5%.
Large numbers.
You're talking about huge numbers, and when that occurs, it's across the board. Shortages across the board. And you know what? Are we getting used to barren shelves? Are you getting used to barren shelves? I think that
I don't know if I am or if I'm not. I think that as long as there's those shelf space that are empty don't affect me, I'm okay with it, right? If I'm walking up and down the aisle and there's no oranges, I'm okay with that part. But you know what? There's certain things,
tonic water.
Yeah.
I'm a little
But there
upset.
are items in that you're going to look at. So I don't know if we're going to get used to this or not. I'm going to tell you, though, once again, is that we are having backups, and it doesn't take much.
No.
And I'm not saying, you think about last year when we had the great freeze. Was that last year?
Yep.
Yeah, last year you had that great freeze in Texas. There's bad weather all the time. But when a supply chain is already just tight, David. I mean, it's already failing today.
We call it fragile.
Yes, and when it is what it is, and now you take that group of drivers out for a day, and it's just think about those simple numbers.
Right.
I mean, that's 6,000 loads a day that aren't moving, that can't move. There's nothing you can do about it. You can build the warehouses. There's nobody going to be able to get it there.
Right.
Your warehouse can be full, but guess what? You, the bobtail company I only run bobtails, the big trucks don't affect me. It's going to.
So I was on the work today and I got stopped by the train as it was rolling by, and I was sitting there, and it was a very big train. I mean, it was like longer than, it probably had 200 cars on it. And I was sitting there going, you know what, good for them, because they're moving stuff. I mean, and they've got to. I mean, somebody's got to move freight across this country, because and we as drivers and we in the industry, this supply chain is fragile. And anytime I see anybody doing something about it, it makes a difference, because there's not very many more straws that can take that on this camel.
No, there's really not. Hey, it is Thankful Thursday, and it's a day we want to make sure that you know how thankful for you, the driver, that we are. We couldn't do this without you. And part of what BCB Live tries to do is give you that information, let you know what's going on in your industry. When we open up this show, Dave, we went straight into weather. Why? Well, because it's what we do. We want to make sure you know those road conditions. You know what you're dealing with. We want to make sure you know that it may be time to shut down right now. Absolutely. Before you get there.
Yeah, and or take a second look at before you head out this morning. Right? Hey, whoa, maybe I don't need to go that way. Maybe I need to take the southern route, right, up through LA. Maybe I need to do some changes.
Yes.
And make sure that where you're headed and what you're doing is safe. Because no matter what we talk about here, the first thing that we talk about is safety. The first thing that we want you to think here is safety. And you know what? Even if it means to go a little bit out of the way to be safer, it's the way to go, right? Today it is, because there's a lot going on in the world, especially in our country when it comes to bad weather. We just got to make sure we make good choices what we do, wise choices in what we do. Communicate with dispatch. Make sure you understand that they understand what you're doing, what you need to do, and that, you know what, come to an agreement on that.
Yes, for sure. And listen, we're thankful for you. God bless each and every one of you. We'll be back in about 60 seconds. We have another episode of Double Check Dale going over the road conditions, weather, highway traffic. All of that is what happens right here on BCB Live, safest station in the nation.
Hi, this is David Dover, also known as Drive Safe Dave. You are watching BCB Live, the safest station in the nation.
Safety is what you want to talk about, and safety is what you want to be every single day. That's what we're here for. We're here to make it better.
The industry needs BCB Live so that it can find new and inventive ways to bring safety to the forefront for every single person out there on the road.
You got to be prepared to stop. And when you look at that and you understand the situation that you're in, you got to know that it's going to change. You got to expect it to change, and you can't run those lights.
You can watch BCB Live weekdays, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. So what are you waiting for? Follow and subscribe to BCB Live today.
Hey, good morning on this Thankful Thursday, and I am so thankful for all the drivers out there that are braving this weather event, the cold temperatures, the less than ideal road conditions in a lot of areas. So thank you to everybody out there. Thank you to the professionals out there. Thank you for keeping the road safe, for protecting life out there. Hey, we're going to look at some traffic, and then we're going to look at some weather and see what's going on around the country. Right now, we'll start with the traffic in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You know, it doesn't look too bad this morning. If you're over on the Fort Worth side, it's going to be that 35W southbound north of the 820, and that's where you're going to see a slowdown and something going on there, because it looks pretty, it's a pretty long area of red and dark red. So expect some delays over in that area. That's 35W south, north of the 820 split. And then you head over to the Dallas side, mid-cities. The roads in the mid-cities look really clear this morning. Dallas looks really good. Downtown area, a little bit of congestion going on the 635 loop over by 30 in the Garland area. That's where you're going to see one slowdown. Other slowdown is going to be on Highway 80 in the Sunnyvale, Forney area, going westbound, slowdown and some slower traffic there. Other than that, roads look pretty good in Dallas this morning. Houston, there's more going on down there than normal. We have a couple of hot spots, and one would be up on that outer loop in Jersey Village area. Looks to be like that southbound lane there, something going on, so expect some delays up in that area. And then 45, before you get to that outer loop, southbound lanes again look like there's a slowdown coming there. And then as on 45, as you get into that inner loop, another major slowdown there. And then you get in the downtown area of Houston, lots of traffic going there, so you're gonna really have to be patient there this morning. Slow it down, increase your space, because traffic is very heavy in the downtown area of Houston this morning. And then 45, as it starts to exit out of town, all the way to the outer loop, the 610 loop, some very stop and go traffic, some slower traffic there. So Houston, heavier traffic than most days that we've seen recently. Kansas City looks good. Everything is moving, looks pretty normal up in Kansas City. Chicago looks better than most days. All the roads coming into town, 90, 88, 55 from the west, those all look good. Coming in from the east, they look good. A couple of hot spots. One up in Lincolnwood. It looks like you have some slowdowns on the southbound side before you get to I-90. And then 55 in the Cicero area going towards, both directions inside the loop. Some slowdowns and tie-ups there. And of course, the 90, 94 in the downtown area. Lots of stop and go traffic there, but that's really normal for this time of day. Atlanta, if you are on the south side of the town on the 285 loop, it looks really good. If you are 20 coming in from the west, right before it gets to 285, you are going to see some major slowdowns and traffic tie-ups, so be aware of that area. If you are on the north side of the loop, up in the Sandy Springs area, we're seeing some tie-ups and backups, slowdowns there, both directions, so be aware of that. That's Sandy Springs and 285. Other than that, looks pretty good in the Atlanta area. Not too bad this morning. Philadelphia actually looks really pretty good this morning. I think they're probably preparing for some weather events out there because traffic looks light. Even the downtown area in Philadelphia looks good. The Narberth area is on 76 is probably the only area you're going to see a major slowdown. Going north out of town on 95, 295, Jersey Turnpike, they all look really good this morning. Nashville looks extremely good this morning. There is nothing really to report on the major roads in Nashville. They all look pretty darn green this morning. So if you're in the Nashville area, enjoy the good traffic. DC, Baltimore looks really good. The area of concern, if you're in DC, would be the Silver Spring area on the 495 loop. Looks like that'd be the westbound lanes. You're going to have a slowdown and tie up there. But it doesn't look too bad as you head up to Baltimore. All the roads going from DC to Baltimore or vice versa look really good this morning. And you get into the Baltimore area, traffic looks really good up there. Nothing major going on, nothing to report in Baltimore. Going over to Indianapolis, must be a light traffic day. Thankful Thursday. Everybody's thankful that the traffic is good because in Indianapolis, traffic looks very good this morning. All the major routes look wide open. Only area of concern or that you're going to see a slowdown is if you get into that downtown area on 65. You're going to see a little bit of a slowdown there, but Indianapolis looked pretty good this morning. With that, we are going to jump over to some weather. And we're just going to start with the temperatures this morning to let you know that it is really cold in a very large area of the United States right now. North Platte, Nebraska is currently at -1, Mitchell, South Dakota -8. If you get up in Bismarck, North Dakota -22. We have single digits all the way down into Kansas. Ness City, which is out in southwest Kansas, is 8 degrees. You get down to Memphis, Lexington, Kentucky is 23 degrees. Memphis is 30 degrees. I bring that up because we're going to see a lot of precipitation, and the cold temperatures are further south than normal. And so when we see that precipitation, we see the freezing rain and a wintry mix going on. And so be aware of those temperatures. If you're in an area of winds, be aware of the wind chill. I mean, because the wind chill will, frostbite happens pretty quickly when it's that cold in a lot of areas. Going from there, we will go over to precipitation, and we will talk about what's going on there. We have a band of snow that starts all the way up in Seattle or Washington area, comes down through Idaho, through parts of western and southern Wyoming into north and northern Colorado. And that band of snow stretches all the way across Kansas into Missouri, all the way across Missouri from Kansas City. And it looks like I-70 is probably pretty close to the cutoff line. North I-70 doesn't look like getting much precipitation, but south of 70 in Missouri, we're getting snow all the way across St. Louis, southern Illinois, into Indiana. And then that snow also is in northern Arkansas and western Tennessee. And if you're in the Memphis area right now, they are expecting a wintry mix of freezing rain. Their temperature in Memphis currently is about 30 degrees, and they're expecting some rain. And so be very aware of the roads, the road conditions there. Remember, bridges and overpasses freeze first. We'll move that ahead to see what happens during the day or into this afternoon, this evening. As we get in this evening, the snow and precipitation we were talking about down in the Tennessee Valley starts to move northeasterly, and so now it's up into Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania by 8 o'clock this night. New York is starting to see that snow, and as it continues to move into tomorrow morning, it shifts over way to the coastal area. And I think Washington, D.C. will probably see a little bit of snow in the overnight hours into morning. New York City, Boston, all the way up along the Atlantic coast, all those northeastern states are going to be getting snow or mixed precipitation tomorrow overnight into tomorrow morning hours. So if you're up in the northeast tomorrow overnight, tomorrow morning, you'll definitely want to be aware of that. The temperatures are going to be plenty cold for things to stick, ice and roads. By tomorrow afternoon, that storm continues to go up north, but even tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, the northern New England states are still receiving snow and precipitation. So we have a caller out there, Jack?
Well, no, we have a comment from Mr. Donald Scott. He says it's about 1 degree in Denver right now.
1 degree in Denver?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's cold. That's cold. So, make sure your truck you're prepared for it, anti-gel in your fuel. Carry some alcohol along for your airlines. Thank you for calling in on that. We have a lot of precipitation going on. Again, find a weather app. We use windy.com here, a really nice weather app. Get familiar with it. Jack, our caller, share.
Mr. Bob Briggs.
Hey, Bobby.
Give him a second. Let's see. Well, I believe maybe he just accidentally raised his hand.
Okay.
Oh, wait, there he is.
All right.
I got a question for
There's
y'all.
a lot of weather going on.
Yep. Go ahead.
The question is, what is the company procedure for letting your truck idle instead of killing it? Like last night, it was 6 degrees in Boise City, Oklahoma, with a chill factor of -12.
Company policy is to stay warm, and if that's idling, I believe the presets on that will allow your truck to idle when it gets that cold. And so if we have it set up that way, idling is acceptable because we want you to stay warm. We don't want to endanger our drivers or anybody else out there. So it is okay to idle. I don't know what the exact temperature for that would be, but I do know we have temperature set up on the APUs when it'll idle and when it won't.
Well, my APU's working good. I just, that cold, I started it about 3 o'clock this morning and let it idle.
Yeah. Like I said, idling at that cold is not a bad idea. So.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, with that, we will take a short break and we'll come back to safety.
Welcome back to BCB Live, safest station in the nation. Boy, the producer here, he keeps us on our toes, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's bounce.
Impressive.
3, 2, 1, you're on. You're hot.
I'm shuffling papers.
Hey,
over
we
here.
got a card player over here going on. Hey, we want to remind each and every one of you as well as, hey, when it comes to anything, especially safety related with your company, hey, make sure you call your operations team wherever you are. You know, there's many companies outside of, you know, there's more than one company, I should say, that watches and participates in this show. We want to make sure you call your operations team. Make sure you talk to your dispatcher and ask those questions. I'm going to say this, though, Dave. When it comes to freezing weather like that, cold weather, you know, for most companies, probably every company, hey, they're going to say idle your truck. Stay warm, stay healthy. You know, don't take a chance on that, especially if your APU is not working.
Yeah.
You know, and again, we talked about that earlier in the segment, is that some companies are going to, you know, many companies are going to say, hey, you know, don't idle your truck. These are the exceptions, right? This is when we've got to make sure that those that you're taking care of that equipment. And there's so many different kinds of trucks out there, right? I mean, you have the different years, you have the different makes, models, you have APUs, not APUs, you have all of these different things, and one answer can't answer for all.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, there's so many makes and models. Like a lot of the newer trucks have a recirculating valve in them, a recirculating tank that brings fuel that's been warmed from the engine back into the tank while the truck's running, so that it keeps the truck, so it keeps the it actually keeps the fuel warmer than the outside temperature.
So there's no gelling going on.
There's no gelling going on because the fuel itself is kept relatively warmer in that regard. And there's also, there are older trucks that do need some house do need some anti-gel, a thinning agent that allows the diesel to flow easily, because you don't want it to clog up the filters and the lines and to coagulate in the different areas that make it really difficult to start. Then you got to call somebody out, and it's cold. And you know what? When the truck's not running, I'm just going to go out there when it's 8 degrees outside. When the truck's not running, it's cold in the cab. I don't know if it's like an ice box in there. Really quickly, you turn into a small refrigerator. So do yourself a favor. In really extreme temperatures, make sure that you are genuinely prepared. There's a lot of tips online. There's a lot of Googling you can do. You can also pull up a lot of YouTube videos on what you can do to help yourself out there. But I'll tell you, be prepared. Do your investigation. Do your own work out there to make sure that you protect yourself. Make sure you carry layered clothing. Make sure you have gloves. Make sure you have boots or a change of shoes, because stepping off into a puddle keeps then you got a wet shoe. I promise you, you're going to want to change that sock and that shoe. And you know what? Those things like that, they matter in the long term. So
yeah, and I want to go on the communication piece as well. We talk about that a lot on here, and it's a skill that we've all got to continue to work on. But you inside the trucking company, don't assume that everybody knows. Don't assume that, well, he was been in this truck or she's been in this truck for a year, for 3 months. They should know your truck is specific, right? I mean, the type of truck that these drivers are moving, there's certain things you want them to do. And if you have many different kinds of trucks in that fleet, that means they all have to know what you expect them to do on that. Don't be afraid to communicate. Don't be afraid to tell them to idle. Don't assume that they know all of these things. Take the time to call. Take the time to talk to them. Send a message out at least. Do something to make sure that our drivers out there on the road know what is expected of them, what your expectations are.
Yeah, and you know what? That also goes for the owner-operators out there. You know, make sure that when you're out there and you're doing, make sure you know your truck well too. Make sure most owner-operators do know their truck, but they also have, there are certain things that you want to make sure that you're aware of. Investigate, study, and actually learn a little bit more about your truck. You'll be better for it in the long run.
No doubt about it. Hey, we got some videos to show.
Hey, we do have some videos.
Let's go to it, baby.
Let's see what we got going on here. Probably going to be sitting at a stoplight. Light's red, it turns green, and we're going to see a four-wheeler go blasting right through what has to be a red light. Intersections are dangerous, folks.
Somebody give this guy some BCB Live. Let them know that, and as a truck, as a big truck, as a four-wheeler, you've got to be careful at these intersections. They're just dangerous. I mean, it's crazy when you see things like this.
Yeah, and what's great is not only the four-wheeler on the right of the truck, but the truck, nobody even moved. Everybody was like, oh, we see you, buddy. We see you. Go on through. We see you're going to run. You know what? It's green.
Look at that light. Look, you see the other light, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's red for for at least a couple of seconds, and he goes anyway. Watch this. Here we go. Red.
He's red now.
1001,
1001, 1002. God, I mean, the guy in front of him kind of ran it too. If you go, I go. It's kind of one of them deals. And remember, if you're in the big truck, that when you make that decision, here's the other thing. You still got 53 foot behind you.
Yep.
Right? So make sure that, again, as a big truck, that you're being safe. You're looking out. You're not just going. And as you approach these intersections, that you're preparing to stop.
Again, I think we're going to take another look at the intersection, and it's right at the end of this video. We're over in the lane into construction zone, and the light's going to change. It's just starting to change, and there's a four-wheeler in the turn lane that says, hey, you know what, I got to go straight, and it goes right through that. So intersections are dangerous. People change their minds at the last second, just have to be
phenomenal driving here, though. We're slowing down. We get into the lane. We see the light green, and in my heart, I've got to think it's going to change. There's no chance I make it. I begin to slow down. This car sees it's an escape route, I guess. I don't know. But we slow down. We see this truck slow down. Folks, do this. This is great driving. Looking up ahead and being prepared to stop at a green light. And Dave, it sounds silly, right, to think that, it's green. Why would I ever be prepared to stop? Help me out.
First of all, you said it. You hit the nail right on the head. Number one, you should always be prepared to stop safely in any situation you're in. It doesn't matter if you're coming down a mountain. It doesn't matter if you're coming to an intersection. It doesn't even matter if you're out there on the highway. If you need to stop, you need to be prepared to stop safely with the space that you have in front of you at all times. There is no situation in which you tell me, Rick, you know what? That's not a time where you need to be prepared to stop safely with the space in front of you. There can never be a moment which you can't say be prepared to stop. But you watch this video, you're entering into an intersection, you got a stale green light, all of a sudden you have a traffic pattern change with construction on the road, and you have a lot going on here that you have to disseminate and have a good decision about what you're going to do, and then you have a four-wheeler doing the crazy, pulling out in front of you right at the last minute. So there's a lot going on in this video, but you know what? It's what you do every day as you're out there on the road, seeing these challenges, as you meet these environments that are very, very difficult to discern exactly what's happening, especially if you didn't know that construction was there or what was going on.
Yes, situational work. Being aware of everywhere you're, being aware that something's going to change, that your traffic pattern did change, Dave. You do have construction. You have a four-wheel that cuts you off. You have a light that's green, and it's been green. It may change, and all of these you've got to be going through your mind, and we saw it in action right here, Dale. Beautiful video.
Yeah, I love that one.
It's a Sir Rick Award winner right there.
1001, 1001, 1001, 1001, 1001, 1001. All right, we're a little too close. Didn't everybody agree we're a little too close?
Yeah, we're a little too close. That's exactly what that one is. And then that lane change right at the end. So just have to, practice that patience. Back it up. We're all going to get there. We have to be safe to do it.
I understand not moving over to the right lane right away because of the truck over there. I understand not making an immediate lane change and waiting till after that, but that doesn't take away from your responsibility to slow down, back off, and give this guy a little bit more space. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to lose any time at all. Give yourself a second.
Yeah, because I mean, let's face it. There's not going to be a deer there. But if this driver has to stop for any reason, has an emergency, something happens, he just or she decides just to put the brakes on, you've got to be able to stop so you don't hit them. And when you're this close, you can't stop in time.
Yeah. If there's something in the road, a recliner. How many times have we seen big chunk of debris in the road, and then they start hitting the brakes for it, and we're so close, that quick lane change, and so. Following too close, quick lane change.
Yeah, and also this video is kind of a concerning video. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 vehicles on the side of the road. The only one flashing is the big rig. There's a lot going on over there. You don't know what's out there in the road. You can't see. You got to have the big picture. I do like the fact that you don't move over right away and you stay away from that element of what's going on over there. But you got to back off of the vehicle in front of you.
This one's just, slowing down for conditions. And this is pretty heavy fog. Talked about being able to stop in every condition. And overdrive. Your headlights should not overdrive into the fog. If you can't stop in the distance you can see ahead, you're going too fast for it. the driver does a nice job in this one of slowing down for the heavy fog.
Yeah, the video right here that we see, Dave, I count maybe 2.5 seconds of visibility.
You know, and I'll just say that might be because of the camera. That might not be what the driver can see out there while he's driving. Maybe he can see a little better than what the visual is on the camera. But I will tell you, you can't go faster than what you can see. Counting right here is not a bad idea, especially those signs. So when you see that sign there to the right, you start counting, and that's how you'll know right when something comes into view. You can just basically start, and then when you see it, you just start counting, and that way you know how far away it is, and that will give you a little bit of protection.
1002, 1000.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
And one of the other concerning things in here is you look at the traffic on their side, you see vehicles without their lights on. I mean, when we have, restricted visibility, turn those headlights on, be seen out there. If we're coming up on somebody behind somebody without their tail lights on, it makes them all that much harder to see.
And fog lights are best in this situation.
And drive safe, Dave. Is this a great time to use your brights?
No, that's why I said
Talk
lights are ideal.
Why not the brights? Why not the brights? Don't assume we all know. Talk to us.
Yeah, it'll reflect off of the moisture in the air and off of the fog itself, and it'll limit your ability to see, and it'll blind you. It'll give you a fog blindness. So you don't want to use your brights at all. It doesn't help you. And in these situations, fog lights actually stay low to the ground, shine low, and protect that ability because the fog is a little bit off of the ground, and so it makes it a little bit better for you going forward. Nice clear day.
What's that? Yeah.
Nice, pretty clear day out west.
Yep, we're out west. And again, we've got a big truck pulling over. It starts out great. We got so great at speed and space, and the Swift pulls over to pass, and we get up way behind, and we jump over into that other lane. And what do we have? We have to slow down anyway. And so it's about that speed and space. We're gonna get there. So just slow down when you see the vehicles ahead of you slowing down, especially after they pulled out to pass. Something's going on. You need to slow down with them instead of coming up with it.
And I'm going to tell you that every one of us out there knows this out on the road. We all know that there's certain vehicles that when they move into the left lane, we already know their maximum speed. We know intuitively that this guy is not going to ever be able to do 70 miles an hour at any time out on the open road. So if you're already aware of that, back off, give him the space that he needs, respect him to or her to out there on the road and give them what they deserve. Here's your opportunity to be the great driver and back completely off and give them what they need.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter. We know Raider, for example, is going to go, 65 miles an hour, 55. I don't even know. They don't move very fast out there. You have a Swift doing the same thing. When you know these things,
of course you do.
It doesn't do any good to do what we're doing right
Absolutely.
here.
We all know.
As a matter of fact, this tells you to slow it down.
100%.
You know what? Slow it down.
Absolutely.
Respect what's going on. Look at it. You'll eventually pass. What doesn't make any sense is to move over to the right lane in here, because he moved to the left for a reason. He's eventually, or she's eventually going to pass this truck. It may take a while. You may have to pack some extra patience, but eventually
y'all are
they're
doing
going to pass
500 miles today. Y'all are going to be fine. Okay, that's where the patient comes in. You're the professional and understand it's not the 1 or 2 miles down the road that I got to get off the next exit. You're doing the 500 miles today. Here is the 6 minutes that you're going to have to deal with this. What do you got over there? I think
we got Mr. Bill Criddle.
What's up, Bill?
Bill, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. How y'all?
We're doing wonderful, sir.
Well, that's great. It was snowy and icy when I come through Memphis this morning, but I wanted to touch up on something Rick and Dave said about the COVID. These guys, as drivers, we need to kind of help out on that, especially when we go around a bunch of folks and bring it home to our families or bring it to the office there around our people there. And because right now, my girls tested positive yesterday. Both of my girls did with COVID. So I'm staying in a motel this weekend at home. But
yeah, sorry to hear that, Bill. Sorry to hear that, Bill, but I agree with you on that. And Dave, when it comes to that COVID, we're going to go into that real fast. Really, though, it's not the drivers, especially the over-the-road drivers. So during the break, I actually had a conversation about this with another trucking company that has about 15% of their fleet out with COVID right now. Think about the difference of the fleets. Their fleet's a more regional fleet, right? They're home daily. those bubbles can get infected pretty quick. You know,
Correct.
I mean, the bubbles are bigger because the local drivers are in the office. They see each other every day.
Yeah.
An over-the-road driver, their bubble is pretty small.
It's very
Yeah,
small.
so
In
when
fact-
they
in fact,
go
you
home,
stay away from people.
Yeah,
Most
about
of
6
everybody out there, you just tend to like avoid them at a certain space. You give everybody the space they need, especially out there in the fuel aisle and out there in the truck stop. Everybody's trying to be, you're not up in somebody's grill or in somebody's business. So the bubbles are very, I
Yes.
think some of the most protected people out there, believe it or not, are the drivers when they're out on the open
the
road.
over-the-road driver for certain is protected. Again, it's different for every company, but if you're at a company that you're driving a bobtail truck or a box truck or you're home daily, understand that you stand a better chance of that bubble
100%.
getting infected, and it's going to run through the bubble. An over-the-road driver, independent contractor, company driver, if you just think about it, if they get sick, well, they're probably only going to infect themselves as opposed to going through the big bubbles that these other companies tend to have. So it's just something to know. And I wasn't even thinking about that, the differences in the type of fleet you have.
Absolutely.
A local fleet versus an over-the-road fleet. In that course, but hey, Bill, we ask, lots of prayers for your family. We know it's real, right? We know that it's just going through this country, it's going through companies right now. Make sure you're doing your part. Make sure that you just continue to wash your hands, do the basics, and keep your hands clean, wash, wear a mask, keep your distance.
If you
and
can,
I'd
get
almost
vaccinated.
without a doubt, if you can, get vaccinated as well. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day you've given us. We ask a special prayer for all of these drivers, just everybody across this country right now that's dealing with COVID, that you protect them, that you get them safe and you keep them safe and you get them back. Lord, I just think it's just healthy for all of us to be together and work together, and just ask that you give us the courage also to do the right thing in times of COVID and cold and icy conditions, that you give us the courage to take care of one another and love one another. Ask all of this in your Son's name and continue to thank you for all that you do. Amen. Everybody, this is BCB Live. We'll see you this afternoon, and stay tuned for your local BCB Live show throughout the country as well. God bless each and every one of you.